Hi everyone, my name is Kira and I want to talk today about something that is very close to my heart and also my personal history, and that is borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is often described as a psychological death sentence or the cancer of mental health. And it's called this because it is believed to be something a person deals with and has and suffers from their entire life. People think that treatment can help a person cope or manage better, but ultimately someone with BPD is going to have BPD forever. And also people think that those with BPD are very difficult to work with as clients or patients in a mental health setting, and very difficult as children or friends or partners. So there's an incredible amount of stigma, and with that, an incredible amount of misunderstanding around and about BPD. I struggled with BPD as a teenager and as a young adult. The first time I ever heard of BPD, I had been diagnosed with a lot of other things, like I'd been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and those captured some of what was going on. Like I certainly struggled with those challenges as well, but they just did not paint the full picture. Like I still felt this sense of constant pain and emptiness and validation seeking and fear of abandonment that was not articulated in those diagnoses. Or it was not part of it was beyond just those diagnoses. And I didn't know what it was. And my family at the time did not either. But the first time I ever heard of BPD, my mom had a book that she left out on the kitchen counter. And so I was, just flipping through it. And it's describing these symptoms of a persistent feeling of emptiness, like this constant sense of just despair and like deep loneliness, really intense attachments, like validation-seeking behaviors, like looking for relief in other people, a very unstable sense of self, impulsive behaviors, feelings of wanting to die often, and a fear of abandonment. And as I read through these symptoms, I felt this recognition, this sense of recognition of, oh my gosh, this is describing me. What it also described in the book, and then what I heard so many of the professionals that I worked with as a teenager describe it as, was almost like a terminal illness. It was like, you're gonna have this your whole life. And it is like the one illness like no one wants to work with. It's something people wouldn't wish on their worst enemy. And that was my experience of BPD as a young person. It was something I would not have wished on my worst enemy. So that was when I was 16. I am 28 today, and I don't meet any of the criteria for BPD anymore. If I went to someone for an assessment today, there's no way I would be diagnosed with BPD. But I lived in that for years, and I never thought there would be a day where it didn't have such a grip on my life and my psyche. And so what I really want to do in this video is just talk about what BPD is like. So if you are someone who struggles with BPD, you can hear someone else articulate your experience of it. And if you love someone with BPD, your child, your teenager, your young adult, your adult child, it can help you understand what it's like for them. I really want to humanize people with BPD and like bring some dignity to how we see them and talk about them, because I was in so much pain. Like my choices were leading to a lot of pain for the people around me. And I too was just in absolute agony and despair. Like I did not want to be the way I was either. I was not having a good time. So what was going on for me when I had BPD is a few things. One, I was extremely vulnerable to external input. And I also did not have a stable and coherent sense of self. And that makes life really difficult. What it meant was I was usually in some experience of pain. When I think about what BPD felt like for me, it was just like a baseline of pain. Like I almost always felt just this like inner agony and despair and anger at myself and anger at other people and just like total hopelessness. That was just like the norm kind of from how I experienced life. What this means for the first point, that I was very sensitive to external input. So I, at some points, might be feeling fine. I might be feeling happy or full of joy or motivation because with BPD, like the emotions are so extreme. Like we live in these extremes usually. So if I'm feeling good, it did not take a lot for me to just kind of topple and collapse back into that baseline of pain and despair. Like one comment from my mom or one text from a friend that was worded in a way that made me feel rejected would just completely have me spiraling. And in the same sense, like I didn't have a stable sense of self. Like I didn't have a sense of this is who I am and I can navigate the world and move through the world knowing who I am. I was always sort of vulnerable to how other people treated me, what had happened in my day. I was only ever as good as like the last good thing that had happened to me because I was so reliant on external validation to feel okay about myself. The other thing with BPD that can make it so confusing to me, the person with BPD, or us, the people with BPD, and the people around us, is it's kind of like we are split into all these parts where there's the happy part and the angry part, the suicidal part, the impulsive part, the caring part, the compassionate part. And these parts don't know each other. Like I could be in one of these modes at the start of a day, like feeling really motivated and happy, for example. And then something might happen in my day to switch me, knock me into another part, the angry part or the suicidal part. And that part doesn't even know the happy part exists. It's like I'd be so consumed by what I was feeling. And so I didn't know what was real. I didn't know what emotions were actually going to last. I would switch back and forth so fast and so frequently, it would give like all the people around me whiplash. They didn't know what was real. They didn't know what to trust. And I did not either. I also had no idea what was going on. So going back to this point of the baseline that I experienced being painful, that put me in a state of survival mode because when everything hurts, we just want to not feel pain. Like we're trying to just not feel like we're going to die. And so that made me very impulsive and live with kind of this sense of urgency. Like I have to do things now, I have to do them immediately, I have to do them or else. One example of this is one time I really wanted to get my nose pierced and my mom would not let me get my nose pierced. And I had a total meltdown about it, like screaming, crying. And to anyone watching, it seemed very dramatic. But the way that it felt to me was that I was like losing oxygen. Because when a person's baseline, with my baseline being pain, it meant that I was always just desperately and urgently looking for relief from the pain. So every now and then, some opportunity would appear that would suggest some potential relief from the pain. Like a friend invites me over and I have studying I have to do, but I'm so used to feeling like I don't belong and that I don't fit in. And so I think, well, maybe if I go there tonight, I will finally feel like I belong somewhere and I won't hate myself so much. So I have to go. I have to blow off everything I need to do for my own life and argue with my parents about it, maybe even disobey their rules to go because I'm chasing that feeling of belonging. And so it wasn't really about the nose piercing. It was like I was trying so desperately to find relief from the suffering. And these opportunities seemed to be pathways to doing that. But this constant cycle of pain, trying to escape pain, and the urgency that creates, the intensity that creates, is this baseline then also of chaos and dysfunction. And then that becomes the norm. Like, I literally did not know what peace felt like because every day was some version of that. I engaged in so many destructive behaviors because just being in my body and my mind felt like torture to me. And so my whole life was trying to not be in my body and in my mind. So at its core for me, BPD was two things. It was one, the lack of a stable sense of self. The second thing is the distorted filter. And what I mean by this is like the filter is the process, system, frame by which we experience, interpret, make sense of the world. And for me, I had a very distorted filter, meaning something could happen and I would make it mean I am unlovable, I'm always going to be abandoned, I'm broken, I'm not like other people, I always fail. I would take something and without even like consciously trying it to do so, my mind would make it into this really definitive and usually horrible conclusion. Another feature of BPD thinking is black and white thinking. We feel things in extremes and we also think about things in extremes. Even though black and white thinking is usually reductive, like it's not actually the full truth, there's a comfort in it, in the certainty of it. It's always been this. It always will be like this. This is just the truth of the matter. Someone with borderline really struggles to hold the bad and the good. Like, I can be a good person and a bad person. I can do good things and bad things. Someone can make a mistake and still love me. I can make a mistake and still be lovable. It feels like my brain trying to kind of hold and acknowledge all of the gray area felt like it was just gonna like combust. But the thing with black and white thinking is it actually sets you up for so much pain because it's either really great or it's really bad. So it's setting you up for these very emotional extremes and it makes you emotionally hostage to your thoughts. And usually people with BPD like are aware of this. Like, that really is what's so hard about BPD is people with BPD are usually extremely self-aware. And that is part of the torture of it because you know what's happening. You can see yourself spiraling and you still can't stop it. It's like being behind glass and watching yourself self-destruct and you can't get in there to interrupt it. The other thing that's really painful about BPD is you want things that your brain like won't let you have. Like, you want to have a stable, healthy relationship and your brain like will literally just like get in the way of you having what you want. It will like, you'll get so dysregulated when you start to approach having that. You'll feel like you're not worthy of it. You feel like it's inevitable that it's gonna, be ruined at some point. You're gonna ruin it. So you're constantly like in this place of yearning, wanting things that you also like are not, I don't want to say forbidding yourself to have because you don't want to forbid yourself to have it, but it kind of feels like that. It's like you want all these things that at the same time your brain is like preventing you from getting. So BPD is extremely painful. It's extremely painful to live with. It's so debilitating. So now I want to talk a little bit about what helped me in healing from this incredibly painful, like decade plus of my life. So I mentioned that two of the core elements of what made BPD so painful and what contributed to that cycle of pain was the lack of a stable sense of self and a very distorted filter. So the lack of a stable sense of self, my whole life was about not being with myself. So I had to start becoming in touch with who I was, with learning to actually live from my values and not this place of constant urgency. So part of that was starting to recognize what did it actually feel like when I was clear and calm and present, and getting to know that as my new baseline, like practicing living from that place, living from my own values and from that sense of inner knowingness and groundedness, letting that start to direct my life. And I know that that sounds really nice and it took a lot for me to get there. There were many pieces that helped get me to that place, but that really is sort of the subtitle, or like the short version of what it was. Like getting to a place where I wasn't always trying to not be in my own mind and body. I could actually trust myself, and I was comfortable within myself. My experience of being in my body was not torture. And what happens is, like, when I was living from a place where being in my body and in my mind was torture, and I was always trying to escape it, my life became dysfunctional. It reflected how I was, where I was within myself, because I was not at home within myself. When I became at home within myself, I found my inner home, and I knew what that felt like, and I could recognize when I wasn't there. I learned how to get back there and then live from that place, make choices from my inner home. And then what happens is that creates a life that reflects that security and self-respect and self-worth and health. The other piece is having a new filter. So that was learning a way of making sense of information, processing information that didn't always put me in emotional extremes. Having new ways to relate to triggering events, to, oh my gosh, I mean, it's just like an endless list, like relationships with people, stuff within my family system, stuff with work, stuff with school, like having a new filter and a new way of ingesting and metabolizing all that information that didn't lead to such emotional burnout. Healing from BPD was really about reconnecting with who I really was, beyond and behind all of the chaos and dysfunction and very distorted and painful ways of thinking, and coming home to that. So I'm 28 now. I haven't talked a lot in this video about my story, but I was in a ton of treatment as a teenager, inpatient, wilderness therapy, a therapeutic boarding school, and I would not meet, as I said, the criteria for BPD today. I have stable friendships with people I've known for many years. I have a healthy relationship. I have great relationships with my family. I do work that I love. Like, I literally work with teenagers and young adults who are struggling with BPD or other mental health challenges, and work with their parents and their families. And my life is unrecognizable to me now from when I was a teenager. And I'm not saying this like to brag or be like, I'm not saying this like to brag or be like, I'm so wonderful. I'm saying it because I didn't think that I would ever be able to live without BPD's grip on my mind and my life. And I didn't hear that from anyone. Everyone that I worked with, all the professionals, people described it as a death sentence. And I don't really believe that. And so I want to share that piece of my life and where I am now, because I don't think that that has to be true for you and for your loved one and your family. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time to create the new baseline. It takes a long time to get in the habit of having a new filter, going through enough rounds of using it for it to become internalized and intuitive. It doesn't happen overnight, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. So if you are struggling with this right now, I hope this video helped you feel less alone. I would love to hear from you in the comments, your experience, your thoughts with this. And if you are interested in more content like this, please be sure to subscribe. I also have a Facebook support group for parents. You will find a link to that below. And I also now do support groups for teenagers, which I am so excited about. So if you want to learn more about the support groups for teenagers, my one-on-one work with teens, you will find the links to read about all of that in the box below. Thank you so much for your time in watching this video, and I will see you next time.